Need for Speed is one of the most underrated films of all time.
Shut up! Listen to me!
Our journey starts with a retired vigilante who nowadays goes by Monarch. This legend hosts a secret race called the De Leon. It's a high risk, high reward, winner takes all, losers walk home type of thing. He only invites the best of the best with super fast cars, so an idiot like Jack Dorkey probably won't get an invite. Monarch talks about this dude Toby Marshall. He was really good at racing when he was young, but this other kid named Dino Brewster had daddy's money to suckle on for support, so he stole the spotlight from Toby and went pro. However, Toby's making a comeback and it's got Monarch's attention. He believes that if Toby got his money up and got himself a real car, he would have a shot at racing in the De Leon. Unfortunately, Toby's dad recently passed away and left Toby with the financial burden of paying off a bank loan. He doesn't tell his homies Finn, Joe, Pete, and Kid Cudi that they're on the verge of losing the shop. Later that night, Pete tells Toby about a vision he had where he sees water, the sun, and Toby looking at a lighthouse, which makes him believe Toby's gonna win the De Leon. You gotta stop smoking that shit, man. Dollar Tree 50 Shades of Grey shows up, aka Pete's sister Anita and her fiance Dino Brewster. Toby used to date Anita, but they broke up for whatever reason. Then she started dating Dino for whatever reason. The film never explains why, so your guess is as good as mine. Anita and Toby awkwardly catch up. She tells him Dino wants to talk to him about something. She doesn't tell him about what because she doesn't want to distract Toby. And he's like, then you should have stayed in Manhattan. Which makes me think she made it out the hood, but at what cost? Anyway, Joe and Finn clear the streets. Kid Cudi becomes a UAV watching out for hazards. Dino joins Finn to watch the race uninvited. Toby locks in and probably thinks to himself,
Speed. I am speed.
This train passes by and honks its horn, which is their cue to haul ass and beat the train. Everyone makes it except for this person because they suck. Pete takes the lead. They all dodge traffic except for this driver, and it's not because she just so happens to be a woman. Pete loses first place to this guy, and even though Toby stays in third place for a cool minute, he patiently waits for the perfect opportunity to steal second place from Pete. They turn into this alleyway where Toby almost decimates this homeless guy. Toby dodges another car and stays parallel to this guy until that extra horsepower kicks in and wins him some hard-earned cash, but not enough to save the shop. Afterward, the boys celebrate and have a good time until Dino shows up, killing the mood. His presence sickens everyone to their stomach like spoiled milk on a sunny afternoon.
Oh shit!
Toby holds this grudge against him because of their unspoken rivalry, and ever since Dino went to the big leagues, he walks around like his shit don't stink. However, Dino is here to make peace by offering Toby the job of a lifetime. Toby tells him he's swamped with work already, but it doesn't take a genius to realize
that was a fucking lie.
Toby gets mad at Dino, but Dino stops Toby before he gets his ass beat. He wants Toby and his team to rebuild him a special Ford Mustang, one that Ford and the legendary Carroll Shelby were building before Carroll passed. Once it's finished, Dino will sell the car for $2 million, and Toby will receive a quarter of that sale, which is potentially $500K. Toby puts his pride away and agrees, which makes Dino happy. His homies don't share the same joy because fuck Dino Brewster and his stupid turtleneck. Toby spills the beans and tells everyone he's behind on his bank loan. Therefore, he needs the money more than SpongeBob needs water. Pete encourages everyone to not be a Debbie Downer, so they all agree to do it for Toby. Come next morning, the car gets delivered in an unfinished state, so the boys get right to work. We fast forward into the future when the car is finished, so I guess you can say this movie has a need for speed.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This blonde English woman named Julia comes over and starts a Q&A. Pete gets offended by her ignorance. She wants to see the engine, so they pop open the hood. She's like,
5.8 litre aluminium block.
Dino comes over and gives Julia an awkward kiss. Julia tells him that $3 million is absurd and Ingram, her boss, won't pay that much for it. Dino lies and says it's worth the V-Bucks because it's the best car he's driven since Indy. But that's cap because he's never even sat in it. Dino and Toby argue about the car's top speed. Dino says it's 180, but Toby knows it's 230. Julia makes the deal that if they can get the car anywhere near 230, her big boss will buy it on the spot. Dino doesn't believe that the car can go that fast, so Toby tells him, maybe you can't, but I can. Dino tells him not to touch the car, but Toby gives him the finger and rips that hoe into full throttle. Toby gets the car above 230, but just as he's starting to have fun, Dino comes to ruin it, and unfortunately, Toby hits the brakes. Julia and Ingram are impressed with Toby's driving, so they buy the car on the spot for $2.7 million. Pete and Toby celebrate, but Dino's pretty salty that Toby drove the car. Then Pete takes a shot at Dino's ego by telling him he could have never got that car to 230 because Toby is the better driver. Just as he's about to beat the taillights out of Pete, Toby tries telling Dino he's the pro and he shouldn't have anything to prove, so let's move on. But Dino isn't satisfied. He makes him an offer he can't refuse. If Toby beats him in a race, he gets Dino's 75% of the Mustang deal. But if he loses, Dino gets Toby's 25%. Toby likes the odds and agrees. They pull up to Dino's uncle's house and borrow some illegally imported Koenigsegg Agera Rs with a top speed of 270 miles an hour. Pete's big mouth calls Dino out because Dino never goes above 180, so Dino lets Pete be a big boy and join in on the race. Toby tries talking him out of it, but Pete wants to race, so Dino lets him have first pick. He also tells Toby that this is exactly what he saw in his vision. Toby beating Dino and then taking his car to go on to win the De Leon. But Toby doesn't say anything because Pete's crazy. These speed junkies zoom down the interstate going damn near 200 miles an hour. They cause an accident which allows Toby to squeeze into second place and nearly collide with an extremely long RV. Toby swerves into oncoming traffic. Pete overtakes Dino on the right. Toby causes another accident, but it's all good because he's still in first place. Pete is putting pressure on Dino by not letting him pass, so Toby can practically smell victory. Dino gets upset and gives Pete a love tap, which goes horribly wrong. Pete spins out and gets planted in front of Dino's car. They look at each other until Pete's car goes flying over Dino. The car explodes on impact, which sets the whole thing on fire. Dino keeps going, but Toby immediately hits the brakes and turns around. He rushes over to the car and drops on his knees, feeling helpless as he watches the fire. Toby's talking to detectives who know that multiple witnesses saw 3 cars that day. However, because they can't find the third car, they're sending Toby to prison. Apparently, Dino made a few phone calls which told police that 1. Dino was with 2 people the whole day. 2. The owner of Brewster Motors reported 2 stolen Ageras just 7 minutes before the police arrived at the crime scene. However, it sounds to me like the cops are being lazy as fuck by not checking any nearby traffic cameras that can easily prove Dino was there. But hey, I'm no detective eating donuts all day. I'm just a guy posting YouTube videos and eating donuts all day. Anyway, Toby gets locked up and loses his father's shop. So fast forward 2 years later, Toby's released from prison and makes a phone call to Ingram. He wants to borrow his Mustang and race in the De Leon. If he wins, he'll give Ingram half the cars, which is worth about $4 million. So he thinks about it. Meanwhile, Kid Cudi picks up Toby and they go to break into the old shop and wait for the Mustang. Eventually, it arrives. Julia steps out asking dumb questions like, where is the De Leon? Toby and Kid Cudi have no idea because they're not even invited. However, they know it's somewhere in California. Julia crunches the numbers and determines it'll take them about 45 hours to get there. The key word being them. Toby doesn't want her to tag along, but Julia's boss isn't going to leave his precious baby in the hands of an ex-convict who is about to leave the state and break parole. She sits inside, so Kid Cudi and Toby plot against her to scare her away. On the road, Kid Cudi guides Toby off the interstate and onto the streets to avoid traffic. So the entire time Kid Cudi guides Toby through the trenches, he goes beyond the speed limit, cuts people off, drifts around corners, and nearly collides head-on with a truck and a bus. Julia sees her life flash before her eyes several times. However, his crazy driving skills aren't enough to scare her away because Toby assumes that she probably can't handle the smoke. Julia calls him out on his misogynistic bullshit and explains to him that there's more to her than meets the eye.
And by the way, I'm an awesome driver.
In other words, just because she's a woman doesn't mean she doesn't know how to drive. Later, 50 Shades of Murder tries swindling this investor whose wife doesn't love him. However, Anita accidentally spilled the beans and revealed the ace up his sleeve he was using as leverage. He stops his nice guy act and cuts to the chase, asking for $5 million. So this pussy husband agrees just as long as Dino wins the De Leon and walks away with all those cars. Back with Toby, he tells Joe he can never forgive Dino for leaving Pete behind at Gapplebee's. So Julia puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that's what all of this is about. Toby wants revenge and probably wants to do the same thing Dino did to Pete. Anyway, they travel to Detroit to get Finn back in the game. Joe calls him and tells him to look outside the window where Toby is revving his engine. This cop shows up and tells Toby to pull over to the side, which he totally does. This crazy stunt shows Finn how jacked up the setup is, which will only slow Toby down at the De Leon. So this entices him to join the crew. He starts taking his clothes off, almost like he was suffocating at that 9 to 5, and before he leaves, he makes out with someone and exposes himself because fuck that job. Then he chases his homie down the hall butt-ass naked like the diddler. Kid Cudi joins as well in a borrowed news chopper, which he uses for his pleasure. Toby bobs and weaves through these cops, which does the complete opposite of scaring Julia. Then Kid Cudi guides Toby through this crazy stunt jump, which helps him escape the cops cops because they don't have the balls to do the same. They upload Toby's footage of escaping a 5-star wanted level to Monarch's website. After that, they get some gas without stopping the car, and Toby's like, what the fuck? Because he didn't think Julia was a badass. Then Toby takes a detour and loses the cops. After that, Monarch watches Toby's skills and gives him respect. However, Dino calls in for absolutely no reason and places a bounty on Toby's head, and whoever takes him out gets Dino's one of 3 Lamborghini Elementos. Julia tells Toby to defend himself, but he doesn't want to, so she does it for him and basically says, if Toby really unalived Pete that day, why would he risk his freedom and travel across the country to right a wrong? In other words, if Toby is a liar, then why aren't his pants on fire? This Twitter beef gets Monarch's heart pumping again like old times, so he invites Toby to the De Leon.
Yeah, bitch!
He's happy, Julia's happy, and Anita just realized that Dino is a murderer. After hearing Julia's inspiring words, she looked through Dino's computer and found a file containing receipts with the location of the 3rd Guerra, which left her in shock. Anyway, Toby stops for gas and Julia runs to take a shit. This state trooper pulls up, which alerts Toby, and this dog that don't bite nearly blows his cover. The trooper gets some coffee but notices a wanted silver Mustang outside. Julia steps out and hides from the trooper, failing a stealth check. The dude walks up to her and spits some game, trying to lead her back to his car, but Julia knows better than to follow a stranger she just met, so she runs for her life and hides upstairs. Toby meets her outside a nearby window, but as soon as he turns on the gas guzzler, this dude bolted down the gas station to stop Toby instead of just kicking down the door. Julia freaks out because she's afraid of heights, which I totally understand because I can't even ride a Ferris wheel without feeling like I'm in Final Destination. Toby counts down for Julia to make the leap of faith. They don't kiss. Officer Fast as Fuck tries chasing them down in his car. Toby assures Julia they have nothing to worry about, and then he tells her to take the wheel, so rather than pulling over to swap, they continue driving because it saves on gas.
No, wait, it's not what you think.
The following morning, some asshole gives them a love tap because they want to collect Dino's bounty. They tried trapping them in, but Julia can sense the small dick energy coming from this dude in the Hummer, so she baits him out and ends his life. Then, the dude behind them pulls out a shotgun and tries to blow their brains out, which I don't think was part of the bounty. Don't matter, however, because Toby guides Julia through the desert canyons trying to get a hold of Kid Cudi. They race further up the canyon until Kid Cudi shows up in a cargo helicopter, which classifies as treason for the drill sergeant. They hook up to the chopper, but before Kid Cudi saves them, he wants Toby to glaze him like a donut and admit he can fly an Apache helicopter. Toby does it because he doesn't want to die. Julia freaks out because heights, but Toby calms her down with his eyes. The last thing Kid Cudi does is fly them to safety until his war crimes get him sent to the gulag. Toby and Julia make it to California and arrive 20 minutes late to their destination in San Francisco. Toby runs inside and runs into Dino. He taunts Toby by telling him he wasn't there the day Pete went extinct. Instead of beating his ass, he decides to settle the beef behind the wheel, and the moment Dino is flipped upside down, Toby won't be there to save him. Toby goes back to the car where Julia comforts him. They leave the area and immediately get T-boned by a tow truck driver who works for Dino. The Mustang gets totaled. Julia tells Toby to leave before the cops show up, but instead of leaving her behind, Toby saves her because she's not Dino. Joe and Finn get Toby's call and pick them up before the cops show up and take Julia to the hospital. Toby calls Anita and they meet down by the river. Toby wonders why she hasn't left Dino, but she tells him she just did because she knows that he was there the day Pete got wasted. She's sorry for the time Toby lost in prison, but Toby tells her he needs a car, so she gives him the location of a car that disappeared off the face of the planet. Toby and Joe travel to the junkyard where they find Dino's murder weapon. After taking the car, Toby travels to check in on Julia, where she's doing fine after taking most of the impact. Then she tells him to do it for Pete, to which Toby agrees, but he's like, this is for you too. And they kiss. The following morning, Monarch delivers the lineup starting with English McMuffin in a Bugatti Veyron, Dino Bambino in his Lamborghini Elemento. Then we got The Gooch in his Saline S7 and Texas Mike in a McLaren P1. Why are these corn star names? The last dude is Johnny Sins in his GTA Spano and no Toby Marshall in sight. The race is about to start, but Toby pulls up in the Red Agera. Toby walks up to Dino and knocks on his window. Toby's like, you like the car I brought? Because I know the cops will. On the inside, Dino's probably like, wait. And then he tosses Anita's engagement ring on his lap. Wait. Anyway, Toby gets ready to win this race for Pete. The lights turn green and they're off. Johnny Sins plays dirty, but Toby hits him back, knocking him off course. Everyone stays locked in. The cops show up and Toby finds an opening to take 4th place. Down the road, this cop tries scaring the drivers with their chopper, but they know this dude is bluffing. These two cops try getting in their way, but the Gooch rams into the back of this cop, which takes him out of the race and puts Toby in 3rd place. The cop in the chopper gets fed up after 2 failed attempts, so he tells every officer left to start using lethal force. And this cop takes the term lethal multiple force, very literally, because he practically kamikazes into Johnny Sins. Next, this other cop camps behind a few trees and prepares to deliver justice with his car. The cop in the chopper helps him time it perfectly, and they take out English McMuffin and his Bugatti. Dino unfortunately moves out of the way, which now puts Toby in first. I should also mention that this entire event is being live streamed by Monarch, so Toby's friends are watching him fight for his life here, and even more now after Dino isn't able to handle the smoke anymore. He flips over the McLaren like a sore loser and takes second place. This event has gone from a winner-take-all race to a war zone. Dino tries going for his signature move again, but instead, Toby purposely falls to second place because this is his opportunity to get sweet revenge. Joe sees what Toby is doing and hopes that he dies a hero instead of living long enough to see himself become the villain. Toby calls upon the spirit of Pete and asks for his guidance through the corner using full throttle. Dino takes this opportunity to play like a filthy cheater and tries slamming into Toby. Toby slams on the brakes and Dino loses control, flipping his $2 million one of 3 elementos in the goddamn world. So now he wonders, was it worth it? Everyone begins to celebrate Toby's victory, but Toby looks back, comes to a complete stop, and turns around to help Dino. But Toby is showing personal growth by letting go of the past and not making the same mistakes as this dirtbag. He saves Dino's life by nearly an inch and asks if he's okay. He says yes, so Toby gives him a right hook for Pete and wins the De Leon. The cops behind him want to congratulate his victory, so Toby steps out of the car. The cops confirm that the Red Agera indeed belongs to Dino, which means he's going to be placed in a cell next to Diddy. While Toby is being arrested, he looks up at the lighthouse and sheds a few tears because this is exactly what Pete predicted. So maybe Pete wasn't crazy after all. Toby gets locked up again, and after a little over 5 months, he's released again and Julia picks him up. But he's like, I've seen you drive and it's terrifying. Which is the exact same thing I tell my mom. Their final destination is to go and pick Kid Cudi up from the gulag, and thus begins a new adventure for them. The end.